Welcome to Focus on Abilities, a program about issues that affect the lives of people with disabilities. I'm Lex Frieden. I'll be your host for today's program. I'm professor at the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston, and I direct the Independent Living Research Utilization program at TIR Memorial Hermann. Today we've got a special show with two interns from TIR Memorial Hermann that we want to introduce to you. We'll visit with them and learn more about what they've been doing in Houston right after we take this break from Focus on Abilities. Please stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in to Focus on Abilities today. I'm Lex Frieden, and we're here today with Felix Wu and Alexia Smalling. They are interns in the TIR Memorial Hermann summer program this year, and want to talk with them about some of the things they've learned and some of the things they have done this summer. Felix Wu, you're from Houston.
Yes.
Presently living, and for the past few years, have been a resident of Katy, Texas.
Yes, that's correct.
And you're a student at Rice University.
Yes.
Felix, what more about your background might we ought to know?
Well, like Dr. Frieden said, I've been in Houston all my life. At Rice University, I've studied psychology, and there I'm really interested in looking at disparities related to people with disabilities and seeing how to improve that. And actually, in the fall, I'll be starting my PhD program in industrial organizational psychology.
So, Felix, you started as an undergraduate with a bachelor's degree in psychology?
Yes.
From Rice?
Yeah.
And then do you have your master's, or are you going directly into a PhD program?
Actually, the program I'm in will have a master's in the middle, so that's where I'll be first, and then I'll get my PhD later.
So is that unusual to be able to get into PhD track program where the masters you don't have to apply separately for the programs? Is that typical, or is that just a special program that Rice has?
Well, I think there are many programs that are also like that, but I would say it's about like 50-50, in which like half of the programs are kind of like that.
So it's kind of, would you call it a fast track program, or it'll take you just as long as it would if you take them in pieces?
I think it would take just as long. Yeah.
And how long would that be?
5 to 6 years. 5
or 6 years. So you spend, 4 years at Rice getting an undergraduate degree, and you like it so much you're going to live there the rest of your life, right?
Yes, basically, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll talk more about that in a minute, but I want to introduce our guest to Alexia Smalling. Alexia, thank you for being with us here on Focus on Abilities today. Alexia, you are a Houston area resident, but not a native. You were born in San Antonio, right?
Yes, I was.
Did you stay there long enough to remember it?
No, I was only 6 months when we came back to Missouri City.
But you like to visit?
I do. San Antonio is lovely.
What's your favorite place, the Riverwalk?
The Riverwalk, yeah. It's pretty much everyone's favorite place, yeah.
I like some of those old fortresses around the city.
Oh yeah, they're beautiful.
You're a student at Lubbock at Texas Tech University, right?
Yes.
What led you to West Texas when you grew up around Houston?
I like the different atmosphere. People in West Texas are super friendly, and it's a small city environment, so I felt like it was better to focus on my studies in that small city.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you consider yourself to be a particularly good student in high school?
Yeah, I was in the medical academy in my high school, so I was always interested in the medical field, and going into Texas Tech, I really enjoyed studying pre-med. When I first came in, I was pre-med.
What prompted your interest originally? What motivated you to even apply to get into the medical academy in high school?
Both of my parents are nurses, so I've always been in the medical background and the medical field, and seeing them go to work and helping patients really inspired me to become a doctor.
Any other schools tempt you?
UT Austin definitely tempted me, and Baylor University, absolutely. But I chose Texas Tech because of the location.
Yeah. And you're happy with the school there?
Absolutely.
You're, what year are you in, junior or senior?
I am a junior.
So you've got one more year at Tech, and then what are your plans?
So still deciding that. I like the routes of public health, physician assistant school, or medical school. They're all great routes, so we'll just see what is the best interest for me.
Now, the summer gave you a lot of opportunities to do internships. I guess the school, your advisors suggest if you have the opportunity to do an internship, you do so. And they provide you with what, lists of prospective internships to apply for? How did you learn about the programs in Houston?
Well, I actually didn't get a list from my advisor. I actually just researched on my own different internships in Houston in the medical field, and I came across the CPRIT program, and that's where I learned about your office and what you guys do in this office, and it really grabbed my attention. So I'm really glad I'm here in this internship.
So the CPRIT program is an internship that's sponsored by the Cancer Prevention Research Institute of Texas.
Right.
It's a unique program. CPRIT in itself is a state-funded research program that's intended to wipe out cancer for everybody, not only just Texans, but they provide a lot of sponsorship of research programs in the state and through various universities and so on. And among the programs they sponsor is an internship here in Houston in association with the Houston School of Public Health at UT. And we at ILRU were fortunate to be able to have the placement of one of their interns this summer. You selected us, right?
I did.
And the options were, would you say, hard to choose or easy?
It wasn't hard to choose. I was grabbed by the Empowerment for Cancer Survivors title of this project, so that's really what grabbed my attention and wanted me to select this internship over all the other ones.
And people don't ordinarily think, when they think of curing cancer, they don't think of survivorship, do they?
Right. They do not.
So I want to visit with that, come back to that subject in a minute, but first let me ask Felix, in your studies at Rice, you know about the local environment in the Texas Medical Center. Were you particularly interested in working here at TIER for the summer?
Yeah, I was definitely interested. I actually visited here a few months ago before the internship, and I was really excited by the opportunities provided by the ILRU in terms of looking at all the different disability research and policy and trying to make change.
What in particular caught your attention when you did your site visit here?
What really caught my attention was people were really excited about the work they were doing, and I was pretty excited just by talking to them about what they were doing.
Had you heard of any other, or were you aware of any other research programs that focused on people with disabilities and older people actually being integrated into the community?
I actually wasn't aware of any other programs that are in the Houston area. I pretty much only knew about this internship, and then I applied after that. So now I'm here.
And you actually have personal experience with disability, obviously.
Yes, that's correct.
You had a disability when you started school. Did you feel like the schools accommodated you well, or did you find some issues that kind of provided a challenge?
Yeah, I actually had my disability ever since I was a child, so I'm kind of used to all the different challenges that people with disabilities have to face. But yeah, coming to college, it was actually pretty different for me because they were running around, like going to different buildings and stuff. Before in high school, I would just have to stay in one building and didn't have to really move. So that was a new challenge for me, and sometimes it's kind of difficult finding where the accessible entrance is. But after like going around for a few years now, it's like I'm much more comfortable with that now.
Well, Rice, when you started there, what, 4 years ago, was not as accessible as it is today. They keep making progress. I guess the more buildings you complain about, the more get made accessible, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now there's like more ramps. There used to be this really old elevator that is like one of the ones you have to kind of like manually use to get into the building, and now they've made just the ramp to go directly in. So there's been a lot of changes going on.
I think I remember that elevator. You couldn't operate it by yourself.
Yeah, you cannot.
Somebody had to go with you. They had to physically push the gate shut, turn the little handle. Like those were old-timey. That's not there anymore, though.
Yes, that's been removed.
That's good to hear. I'll go back to that building then.
Yeah.
That was an important building, too. They had a lot of classrooms in that building.
Yeah, they did.
All right. We'll visit more about accessibility on campus, in the community, and across the nation and the world. But right now, I'm going to ask our folks on the air to take a break. We're going to take just a short break. Please stay tuned to Focus on Abilities. We'll be right back. You're watching Focus on Abilities on HTV. I'm Lex Frieden, your host. Today we have two wonderful guests on the program, Alexia Smalling and Felix Wu. Alexia, you've taken the CPRUT internship pretty seriously this summer. Really, I know you've committed yourself to the program. The CPRUT interns are doing some things differently than the other ILRU interns because you have a different sponsorship and a slightly different focus. What are the kinds of things that CPRUT has enabled you to do that you might not otherwise have done this summer?
What CPRUT really stresses on is using innovation as a tool for solving problems. So the sessions that we go to twice a week, they focus on using creativity, breaking frames, using observation, and using analogies to help solve problems in our projects. So we get together twice a week, we have a review session, and then we have seminars, and we even have speech sessions too to help us with our public speaking.
So, and that's complemented by the practical experiences that you've had at ILRU. What are some of those that have had an impact on you?
Definitely using my empowerment project and being able to tell everybody about what I'm doing and how I'm using creativity to solve problems and put together my assessment tool for the empowerment project is definitely helping in my CPRUT program.
So part of the empowerment concept relates to people with disabilities who are minorities. Some of that relates to people with disabilities who may be cancer survivors, people who generally feel like things are out of their control, out of their span of control. And empowerment's a concept that enables people to sort of feel like they do have control and that they can take initiative themselves. With respect to cancer survivors, many people aren't aware that cancer treatment leaves you with lifelong disabilities, and that's not talked about very much. We talk about cure from cancer, and the cure, I think you might say, has quotes around it because people actually do suffer from the loss of stamina in many cases, from other kinds of attributes that result from the cancer treatment. Chemo treatment, surgeries, all of those treatments don't get forgotten by your body or by your mind after they're over, right?
Right. What I have found in my research is that cancer survivors, they are left with disabilities most of the time. Depending on the type of cancer, if it's a CNS cancer, then they're left with a mental disability sometimes. And if they have any other major surgeries on limbs, then they're left with an ambulatory disability. So part of my research is finding those resources to help them find jobs or education opportunities that are accommodating to them, and for them to have all those resources and knowing their rights in the workplace and their rights in the public as citizens and just as people, and being able to give them the power again to contribute again to society as a person.
Well, many people, I think, in the general public don't realize that cancer survivors face discrimination in some very subtle ways. If you're on the job, you have to take off sick leave to get treatment from cancer. Your supervisor discovers you were taking cancer treatment and you come back to work. There's so little understood by some people about cancer that they're afraid it might be contagious, and so they don't want the cancer survivor in the workplace with others or with them, or what? Do you find that happens often?
Right. In my research, I found that there is a lot of social stigma about cancer survivors in the workplace. They believe that cancer is directly associated with death and that people who are cancer survivors, they're not able to contribute again to the workplace. So definitely part of my research and part of my project is being able to educate these stakeholders and employers and telling them that your employees are contributing members to society and to your company. So they deserve all the respect and the same treatment that you're giving to all of your other employees. Part of the quality of life for cancer survivors is having that supportive work environment. So as long as the supportive work environment is there, then everything else should go smoothly.
And families, they have to have a supportive family environment too, right?
Absolutely.
Do families always understand, or do they need education to be able to be good support?
Part of the rehabilitation, I believe families should definitely take part in that. Being able to be educated about how to care for this cancer survivor once again, and having the knowledge and tools to help them succeed in their environment as well. I believe everybody who is involved in the cancer survivor's life should have that education and that therapy as well, and the support group to give to that cancer patient so that they can be contributing members of society.
That's very interesting. Thank you. Felix, now a student at Rice University, you graduated your undergraduate degree from one of the elite organizational psychology programs in the country. I know some of your mentors and your faculty personally, and they are among the most respected organizational psychologists and psychologists in the United States today. Some of the cutting edge research has been done there. What are some of the projects that you've worked on that you're particularly fond of?
Well, there's this one study in which we what our lab likes to do, which is under my advisor, Mickey Hebel, we look into field research in which we kind of go out into the public and do some manipulation and see how the participants react. So one thing we kind of looked at was how people, whether or not they help people at the metro stops, basically. So we had individuals who were, black individuals who were playing either rap or classical music, and then they would ask somebody to help them. And we also had recorded the interaction like somewhere else. And so it's like really interesting to see how people would interact with this person who's playing like really loud music and seeing how it changes depending on what they play.
You went to school in Katy?
Yes.
Public schools?
Yes, I did.
When you were a child, were you accommodated?
Yes, I would say I feel mostly that I've been accommodated pretty well, but there was times when it was difficult to explain my situation to them, because in public school, whenever you have a disability, you're immediately segregated into a special education class. And I had to often explain to them, like in middle school and high school, no, I want to be in the advanced placement classes, and yes, I do need accommodations as well. But
so they did,
yeah.
After you realized you were being segregated, you told them you didn't like that, you'd rather be in the other classes, and they did accommodate you?
Yeah, eventually, just like kind of hard to explain to.
Can you justify by any means the segregation to start with?
I mean, I guess it can make sense depending on what disability you have, and I think that their point was that they have trained teachers who are knowledgeable about disability, and regular teachers may not be as knowledgeable about it. So I can understand that part, but the accommodations I feel like should still be heard no matter which class you want to be in.
Now I posit here that you may have been born just about the time the ADA passed, the Americans with Disabilities Act. When looking back on your youth, can you imagine any things that might have been better as a result of the ADA than they would have been had you been a generation before yourself?
Well, I think that still the administration of the school listens to your requests for accommodations and are still willing to work with you, which I feel like is very important to be where I am now, because I've developed quite a good relationship with a lot of the principals at my schools, and like just telling them about my issues and how to what's the best way to accommodate.
So I mean, you've graduated for some time. Does the school still stay in touch with you, and are they apt to be in touch if they have a question about another student who's had your experience?
Well, I haven't been approached about another student, but I do definitely keep in touch with them, and we often sometimes talk about like what's been going on in our lives and stuff like that. Very cool.
So those were lifelong relationships that you developed with the administrators and the teachers, and I assume other students as well.
Yes, definitely.
That's cool. Alexia, you have interest in disability that relates generally to the healthcare interest you have, or more specifically?
I would definitely say the interest that I have of people with disabilities would be more towards the healthcare side. Definitely trying to educate clinicians about how to approach these patients that they have with disabilities and how to give them more resources so that they're more knowledgeable about their rights and opportunities, especially for them.
So Alexia, advocacy really is built into your DNA. I want to know more about how you have applied your instinctive interest in the advocacy in your schoolwork. And we'll do so right after we take a break. Please stay tuned. We're going to take a short break from Focus on Abilities. We'll be right back. See you in a minute. Alexia, you're just driven by advocacy. I can feel it when I talk to you. I felt it when we did our interview to get into the program. Among other things, what have been the issues that you've discovered in your schooling and in your life that have given you the opportunity to apply your instinctive interest in advocacy?
Well, it definitely started when I was aware about issues in developing countries and regions about young ladies who are not aware of their feminine reproductive health. So I feel like that's definitely important to educate these young women about. So I've been able to apply this starting when I went to college. I'm in an organization called Collegiate 100, and we do a lot of mentoring in the community with the Boys and Girls Clubs. So we go to the Boys and Girls Clubs probably twice a week, and these are young boys and girls in developing communities like on the east side of Lubbock, and they're mostly minorities. So I've been able to become a role model sort of for these young girls and young boys, and being able to show them that just because you are a certain skin color and just because you are at a certain financial level, that doesn't mean you can't achieve anything that you want. So definitely being able to be a minority woman and talking to these young boys and girls has definitely started my empowerment and advocacy.
So it wasn't necessarily a personal experience you had with that, but more something that you learned and you thought about how you could use your own talents to help resolve that issue.
Right, so I've always had that interest, so I would love to have the education and the skills to be able to give back to the community in that way.
And again, it all leads back to empowerment, people feeling like they actually can control their environment, even if it looks like to them they can't. Is that strategy successful? Can you point to women that you've met who you believe have at least thought about things differently since you talked to them?
Absolutely. So growing up, my mother is Hispanic and she's from the Dominican Republic. So definitely being able to talk to her and talk to other women in my family about the stigma that young women face. I've definitely been able to give my own viewpoints and kind of change their minds about how they view things, such as like provocativeness that might be associated in the culture. So definitely being able to talk to them and change their mind has definitely been a great skill for me.
Is there any way that one can change the environment better than simply being a part of it?
Oh yeah, I think that definitely serving as a resource for people without disabilities to like kind of talk to them about what disability means and what the difficulties are. And I feel like by talking to people, you can help make change because those people will help advocate for disability as well.
And so one of the things that we see is that in the abstract, you can talk to people about barriers, you can talk to them about discrimination, you can talk to them about the disability experience or the minority experience or whatever, but it's still just abstract until they either experience it themselves or they know someone who experiences it, and therefore you can be an agent of change
Yes.
just by being in the environment. Is that, I mean, you'd agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Actually, there's a psychological theory about stigma being reduced just by interacting with an individual from the stigmatized group. So I definitely feel like that is true in the real world as well.
And do you have theories of your own, maybe related to that, that you intend to explore as a doctoral student now?
Yeah, definitely like thinking about how to explain disability to people who may not have exposure to disability at all. And also one thing I found interesting is that a lot of people who have injuries like a broken leg or broken hand, they kind of understand what a disability is at that point because they've experienced like some major life activity being reduced somewhat.
But there's another aspect of that that I always find a little bit dismaying and frustrating, and that is that people do have a short-term
Yes.
experience with disability, and then they think they really get it, but they may only get the fact that it's hard to do things for a while. They really don't get the stigma that's associated with it. They just happen to have a broken ankle. People assume they're going to get over it, and therefore it doesn't have as great a impact on their ego as it would if they're living with that disability. It's another problem that I have, frankly, with these experiential trainings where somebody puts a blindfold on all day long and then they think they know what it feels like to be blind. Just not a good way to replicate reality. It's not living with it. Maybe give people some small appreciation, but it's much better to really invest yourself in understanding, learning about the disability experience all the way through.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like though, like by having that, it kind of opens up the conversation. So I've got to talk to some people who have that, who've broken their leg or arm, and then they kind of like try to understand it more just by talking to me.
Okay. Well, Felix, thank you for being on the show today. You're just down the street at Rice University. It's easy for you to get over. Hope maybe you can do some of your schoolwork using this as a Tier Memorial Hermann as a living environment. Alexia, we appreciate you being here this summer for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your energy, your ideas with us and in Houston, and being a part of the disability community as well as the focus you have on cancer survivorship. I know you've learned a lot, and again, you're very welcome to be back here in some other role in the future. We'd love to have you as a part of our team here and a resident of the Houston area. I know it's going to be hard to leave Lubbock, but we'll welcome you back when you get here. Thank you for being on the show today. We appreciate you both. I want to thank all of you today for watching Focus on Ability. This program is produced by HTV. I'm Lex Frieden. It's a pleasure for me to have you and to be on this show sharing with you aspects of the disability community in Houston and throughout the nation. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to be with us and wish you the best. Hope you'll join us again for more Focus on Abilities. Thanks a lot for watching.